because it doesn't end with the president. It also trickled down to our counties.
Thank you very much. I want to say that there are 4 things that the Gen Z Occupy movement wants changed in Kenya. They are saying that Kenya has lost trust in institutions, transparency has collapsed, and accountability. Number 3 is that discipline has gone, and finally respect has evaporated. Those are the 4 problems that the Gen Z movement and the Occupy movement has identified. They are not just about the presidency, but you've seen the occupation even of churches. Nobody's going to be spared. What do we do going forward? The sacking and the dissolution of the cabinet by President William Ruto is not enough. It is one of the 6 things that must be done. And just allow me to say what the 6 things are that Ruto must do before we can go back to the budget and the finance bill. The first thing was to sack cabinet. The second thing is that he must overhaul, change the leadership of parliament. There's even a court case I've seen to dissolve parliament because it is not constitutionally constituted. Number 3 is that we, and I hope Faith can hear me on this, Faith, we must establish a judicial commission of inquiry that tells us what happened during the peaceful protests. Who killed the protesters? Who burned police vehicles? Who torched the county government offices from Embu to Nairobi to Kikuyu, assemblies all over the country? A judicial commission of inquiry is a must. Number 4 is that all the security chiefs, Kome, Bungei, but we are not talking about the Director General of DCI. That is the man who's killing our people. That's the man who is abducting our people, Amin. Why are people not talking about Amin? You were at Amin's office. He told you that he is not the one abducting, but he does not know who's abducting. So he must, that's number 4, and it's extremely important. Number 5 is that the military must be removed from the streets by going back to parliament and rescinding the instrument that brought them to the street. Number 6 is that we must be allowed to recall all the members of parliament who said yes. They must be recalled. They must be recalled. After we do those 6 things, the list of 14 irreducible minimums will kick in. Number 1 is that CDF must go. We are saying that we must close down all the offices that are chewing up our money. The Appropriations Act, the budget which Ruto passed into law, must be completely dissolved. We have rejected the finance bill, but we allowed him to pass his appropriations. So he is not worried. He has money and he has been allowed to spend. So he's not having problems. We must deal with the Appropriations Act. So going forward, the pressure must not be reduced. The pressure must be increased until everything is achieved that is on the list of the things that Ruto must do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my panelists. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. There is that are there and other institutions. From the role of judiciary, we've not had them coming out and even commenting in terms of what has been happening. As you close, what would you want maybe the judiciary to be very keen on, especially given the police brutality and what we've been seeing?
Wow. I don't think there's a police officer in jail for killing a peaceful protester. They rarely do that. I think one of the things that we blame the judiciary on is that they are independent, but they do not have the courage to jail big perpetrators. We look at Governor Obado and the case about Sharon that happened about 6-7 years ago. And a murder happened, but the man is still walking scot-free. and that same man has another case in court about corruption. So if the man is actually a repeat offender, he shouldn't even have bail. So you realize that sometimes the judiciary says you're innocent until proven guilty, right? But in this country, you're guilty until proven rich, because rich people do not get the same laws that apply to poor people. My closing remarks is actually that if we could get people to do their work that they're paid to do, Kenya would be very, very far. Whether it's Koome in her role as a Chief Justice, and the magistrate under her, the people in the police service, the people who work for the executive. The problem we have is that this country is run by one person, that's the president, and he calls the shots. So you find that a body like parliament is not independent. It's a rubber stamp for the executive. That's why when they passed the bill, they took it to State House to go, you passed your finance bill, it's here. And we need to teach those people who did that a lesson. The beauty of the past 3 weeks is because now we've taken back the power, we're going to set the rules and the tone on how they behave. So right now we're in control. So you can be able to say, these are expectations. I think even the judiciary should be able to come and say, we're going to have, they actually have special courts on economic crimes. But can you have a case listened to and conclude within a year or 6 months? You have to realize the people who steal a lot of money are very powerful. Mm-hmm. And they learned something from Patney. Patney was able to buy the entire judiciary and the entire opposition when he stole Goldenberg. And by doing that, he made it easier for people who steal later on to steal enough to bribe everyone. I was just looking up about Anglo-Leasing because of the killings in Mukuru, because Kenya doesn't have a proper forensic lab. But 22 years ago, would have bought one with Anglo-Leasing money. Anglo-Leasing money was stolen. The thieves were never convicted, but guess who was found guilty for defamation? John Githongo, the whistleblower. So you see how injustice the justice system is. So my prayer is, as we reform this country, we get men and women of integrity like our President Yafedo Odhiambo, who you can believe in and stand and say that if she's in that position, you're safe. And it's very, very important. So the Kenya we want, power. So the Kenya we want, as I conclude, I want the Kenya we want to have the Kenyans we want in that Kenya. Kenyans who believe in integrity and who stand up for their rights. We are standing up for our rights. May we never sit down, ever.
Thank you so much, Boni. Cyprian, as you wind up, what are your closing remarks?
A police officer who has killed somebody in Kangware and there's pressure, the government is also worried or embarrassed, they go and investigate and prosecute that one. But killings such as what is going on today during protests, we have never had IPOA prosecute officers for killings during protests because those are state-sanctioned killings. So in 2017, there were over 100 cases we documented. I think there were more, but we documented 104. IPOA has focused on 2, Baby Pendo and Stephanie Mora, cherry-picking what they can prosecute because these are low-hanging fruits, but they don't go to the bottom, the root cause or the root cause of the problem. So out of 100 plus, they picked 2, and they never even successfully prosecuted. People are having to go and prosecute them on their own. Between 2014 and 2015, there were over 100 people who had disappeared in Nairobi, Northeastern, Coast Region. We presented these cases to IPOA. To this day, they have never prosecuted any. In 2020, during Corona, there were over 20 cases. I don't know how many have been prosecuted. Last year, there were over 70. They promised to take people to court. I think by October, they were saying they are going to court. Nobody has been prosecuted. This one is going to go the same way. So even if IPOA, in fact, their behavior this time has been more strange because before then, we used to communicate with them. We used to know what they are doing. Right now, they have shut their doors. They don't want to say what they are doing. We need to start calling out IPOA. That's one. The second one, I'd asked for more time, if you don't mind.
If you could hold on, we could come back in terms of now what needs to be done to ensure the accountability.
I'm trying to flesh out. So what needs to be done in the terms of IPOA is to begin to call for more accountability, more transparency for IPOA.
Okay.
If you allow me to just go through the 3 points.
Okay.
So the other worrying trend is when it comes to accountability, especially where there are killings, like what we have now, police are refusing to do their bit. So the National Police Service Act of 2011 says that police, as 2012 I think, police are supposed to, once there's a killing, police are supposed to do preliminary investigations. The commander is supposed to share details of that investigation with IPOA, with the Inspector General. Then IPOA picks up from there to start the investigation. That preliminary investigation never happens. So IPOA has to start struggling to understand which police officer shot, what happened, what were the circumstances of the shooting. That should have been in the preliminary report. And then the second thing is that when killings happen in a setting like what we have today, the demonstrations and the protests, what is supposed to guide IPOA in investigating those cases is what is called the operational order, which is basically says which police were deployed where and which orders were they given. And then the second one is what is called the Register of Movement of Arms and Ammunition, which basically gives you now, narrows down when somebody is killed to understand who had which ammunition, who had which gun, and who was where. So when the investigations come, like in Kisumu, a lot of the killings that happened in 2017, police refused to hand over the Register of Movement of Arms and Ammunition. Police refused to hand over the operational order. So it became impossible to understand who shot where, but they're covering themselves up. But they only do that because of lack of political will. What they're doing is political. It's a political order to kill. So what's the problem there? It is lack of police independence. And it takes us back to the struggle of the second struggle, which was to ensure we have an independent police authority. And then the other is the issue of the new trend that we have seen from 2017 is the role of the hospitals and mortuaries. So in the past, you would go to a hospital and a mortuary, and quickly you get the register and get to know who has been brought in, who was shot, who was killed. And then you get to know their names and you get to know their injuries. Today, what they are doing is that they have created 2 registers. And that's why I was cautioning our colleagues in Githurai, don't say you have only 2 or 3 killings, because you don't know the killings. Or we went to Kenyatta Hospital and we found 3 bodies. You need to do more to understand how many people have been killed. Right now I'm hearing people say 50 people have been killed. It's not 50. You don't know. Because what's happening in mortuaries is that they create 2 registers. So the front one is the normal one, where they put like 3 or 4 cases. So when you go to look for people who have been killed, they show you that one. But there's another police register, where they have all the other bodies. So after 25th, the invasion of Parliament, at City Mortuary they had 6 bodies. And we're wondering, but how can they be 6? When even at Parliament alone, we know that at least 8 were killed. And they refused, they just said 6. Later on, we came back and talked to the staff, and we realized there were other bodies being hidden elsewhere which were not in the register. And that is happening not just there, we saw it in Kisumu in 2017. They hide those bodies, and they make sure you never get to know what exactly happened. We also know that sometimes they don't take those bodies to the mortuaries. In Kisumu, we discovered bodies, I think bodies were discovered in Lake Victoria, around 26 bodies, 3 or 4 months later, after we had looked for bodies in JCRH, in Kisumu District Hospital, everywhere. There were no bodies, but they had been thrown elsewhere. Even this one, let us be very careful, because we don't know where those bodies are.